when we think about the world at the moment and the demographic shifts that are facing really the whole of the world. I'm really interested to start to dive into that with you and to think about how those shifts are changing specifically the healthcare sector, but also redefining your investment strategy.
Absolutely. Demographic shifts are changing the way healthcare is evolving. And one of the key demographic shifts that we see, and that I think everyone has been talking about for a long time now, is aging. The world is aging, and the world is aging more rapidly. If we look at the US, just to take one example, in 2022, the number of Americans aged 65 and older was 58 million. That's around 17% of the total US population, and that's expected to grow to 82 million, or 23% of the population, by 2050. If we think those numbers are daunting, we should just look east and look at China, where the number of Chinese people aged 65 and above was already at 210 million back in 2022, and expected to grow to 366 by 2050. So going from 15% of the population to just a little bit over a quarter. And that represents incredible shifts in the population and the demographics. What does that mean for healthcare, which is the area that I focus on? Well, my father once said to me, it's actually turning 35 soon, so in a couple of days, it's a good reminder. He said to me, Camilla, I don't want to be older for longer. I want to be younger for longer. And so that brings us to the topic of healthy aging. How do we promote healthy aging as a global society? Clearly, these shifts mean that there's going to be increased demand for healthcare delivery, better medicines, medicines that target chronic diseases such as cancer and diabetes, arthritis. These are diseases we'll see higher incidence rates of as the population ages. More elderly care facilities, more home health, and then one topic that we haven't really cracked: preventative care. Mm-hmm. There's the patient, but there's also the person before the person becomes a patient. And so all of these things together mean that there's plenty of opportunities for us to deliver healthcare better. That's just one, demographic shift. And I talked about the U.S. and China, but there are also other demographic shifts taking place. Let's take a look at India, for example. There is a booming growth in the middle income portion of the population. It was around 30% of the total population in 2005, grew to 57% most recently in 2022, expected to grow to 85% of the population by 2030. That means we're adding 160 million more middle income and upper middle income households to India. And what happens when people get richer? They tend to spend money on two things: education and healthcare. So again, these are the kinds of forces that are driving how the healthcare landscape is changing over time. And for us, that definitely shapes the way we look at our investment strategy in healthcare. Just taking a step back, we are a global investor in Mubadala. And we look at different ways to invest across different geographies. From a healthcare perspective, the U.S. will continue to be a key market for us because it will remain the largest healthcare market globally. They spend $4 trillion in the U.S. in healthcare annually. So that will continue to be a big focus area for us. At the same time, given some of the demographic shifts I just talked about in China and India, we are increasingly looking to Asia for our investment priorities, and that's going to continue to become a bigger and bigger portion of our capital deployment, in line with the broader Mubadala group, because these demographic shifts that I talked about, they don't only present opportunities in healthcare, they also present opportunities in education, technology, consumer, digital infrastructure, green energy, and so on and so forth. So, today we're about a $300 billion institution in terms of capital deployed. Only 12% of that is in Asia, and we're looking to shift that to closer to 25% by 2030.
And I mean, we've spoken a little bit about demographics. I think that it's impossible to not have a conversation here and not mention AI and the impact that is having across all industries, but specifically thinking about the delivery and the implications for healthcare. I'm interested to think about the way you look about and think about that.
Yes, it's the buzzword for this year's Davos. I know that the theme is building trust, but given the sessions I've attended so far, I feel like the theme is AI because that's all I hear about, even in sessions that don't have a focus
a natural
on AI.
focus. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's no, you're absolutely spot on. The changes we're seeing in digital innovation and AI. I mean, what we're seeing today, we're really at a cusp of a revolution, and it feels very much to me like the way it felt when we were just in the early 90s, right before the internet boom. We couldn't have predicted what that would have looked like, and I think it's similar to where we are today in terms of AI. Thomas Edison didn't hold up a light bulb and think Uber. I think it's kind of similar today, but we are seeing a lot of different ways of adoption across the healthcare ecosystem. I would say the pharma industry has already long adopted AI. They've been using it particularly in early discovery, research and development. They've been using these natural language models really to help them unpack and sift through significant amounts of unstructured and structured and unstructured biomedical data. I heard a statistic earlier today. Every 73 days, the amount of medical data doubles. So how can a human brain go through all of that data? It's not possible. And so in pharma, in particular, there's already been lots of use cases for AI across early stage drug discovery, through clinical trials, commercialization, and it's helping to make this process more efficient, less costly, shorter timelines. And medtech, similarly, has adopted AI and robotics, for example, to enhance precision when it comes to minimally invasive surgeries. We've seen image AI help us better interpret and code images from ultrasounds and X-rays. And when it comes to personalized medicine, wearables are starting to use AI to help us better enhance personalized medicine for the users.
It tracks back to what you're saying about living a longer, healthier life and taking that moment of not being a patient and having AI help with even the demographic shifts of the aging population.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of innovation taking place. I think for healthcare specifically, there's still a lot of groundwork, foundational work that needs to be done. I mean, I know there's already a lot of work happening with generative AI and how that can help us in early stage drug discovery, but there are more basic problems to tackle. We still have a long ways to go when it comes to digitizing information. The revolution of transforming, medical records from manual paper to electronic healthcare records, that just really started happening over the last decade, maybe decade and a half tops. And when we talk about, digital innovation and AI, healthcare at this stage, tends to lag other sectors. When I look at financial services, media, telecoms, there's definitely more runway in healthcare today.